Welcome back to Kababayan Today. We take pride that us Filipinos are all over America, especially in Hawaii, where this is shown every single day. That's why we have a local here. Jenna is here representing all the Hawaiians, right? And she works with Emerging Us. She also is Hapa. Like a lot of you watching, lumaki sa Hawaii, but her grandmother is from Urdaneta in the Philippines. So Jenna, let's talk about growing up in Hawaii and how that really relates to your experience of being part of Emerging Us.
I think it's really interesting what Jose is doing, because the big sort of underlying reason Emerging Us is here is because the minority is becoming the majority. But in Hawaii, the minority has always been the majority.
Right.
Always. And that's what I grew up with, and I always thought Hapas were everywhere and people were all mixed and all sort of like, you know, it was totally acceptable to be like, what are you?
Right.
And you know, I knew. So when I was very young, I was like, I'm Filipino, I'm Hawaiian, I'm Chinese, and I'm white. Like, I know all of what I am.
Yes.
But here it's so different in California, and when I moved to California, it was like political and like you can't ask people, what are you? But in Hawaii, I feel like it's so normalized and people know. And so it's interesting to see how the rest of the nation is going to deal with the minority becoming the majority.
But that's really, truth of the matter is, the face of America is changing and it's not being reflected in media, and that is a big problem, right?
I have to say, by the way, when I was in Hawaii, I was there, they showed my film at the film festival, the great film festival in Hawaii, wonderful. But I decided for whatever reason one day to get a manicure. I've never gotten a manicure before. I'm like, I have time, let me go get a manicure. So I tried to get a manicure or whatever, and this woman, Asian woman, started asking me what I am. She asked me, what are you? And I said, I'm Filipino. She says, only Filipino? I'm like, what? I've never had anybody ask, what do you mean only Filipino? I'm used to people either being confused by that or people going like, what is that? But not like, only Filipino. And then I'm like, what are you? I asked her. She listed all of it. She listed like 5 things. Right? Yeah. And how proud she was of listing those 5 things. And that it was almost embarrassing that I only had one thing to list out.
You're just
She's
Filipino.
like, no, but you don't look Filipino. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Right? So I just thought that was so fascinating. You're totally right. Like in Hawaii, when I was there for a week, that was, people embrace differences in that way.
Exactly, but that's not the case here in America. Why is that? I think that, you know, the face of America is becoming more and more like Hawaii. Now, if only they can live that aloha spirit everywhere they go, right? But let's talk about Emerging Us and how your experiences being Hapa, I mean, it's really tied into your work, isn't it?
Well, like interracial marriages are becoming a bigger part of the continental United States, so the mainland, as we call it. But the experience is really, really different, and it's really not reflected anywhere. Like, I don't see it. And it's a lot of times when you're multiple things, you know, I've seen a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm white, but I'm also black, and the black community rejects me, and the white community rejects me, and that's a narrative that you see on the mainland a lot. But in Hawaii, it's like,
normalized.
It's normalized, and you're everything, and you're all of those things, and I'm all of those things. But I don't see people really talking about that, or, you know, like, where do I fit in? How do I talk about being all these different things? And like, none of those cultures really 100% represent me. And what's really cool about Emerging Us is just that we get into sort of the nitty-gritty, like the details of what it means to be all these different things. And you can be multiple things. You can be all these different things. You can be gay, you can be Latino, you can be white, and just all together. But
it's about representation, isn't it, right?
And also, I think what Jenna's also talking about is this idea of embracing complexity, right? Like, I actually think that's her artistic quality that makes her a perfect collaborator for us, right? Like, to say that things aren't black and white, to say that things aren't just simple, right? Like, I think so much of how we understand identity in this country and so much of how the media portrays identity in this country is very simplistic, almost to the point of irresponsibility, right? That, you know, like, that people are not allowed to say that, oh, I'm all of these things together.
Right, but I mean, I grew up in a time where you don't talk about being biracial, right? I mean, I have a white father. I have a Filipina brown mother. I'm mixed, just like a lot of everybody that's watching this show, right?
Yeah.
But it's now time where we shouldn't be ashamed, right? And there's a platform like Emerging Us where it's like we celebrate.
We celebrate. We see you.
Yes.
I think that's another quality I think of how we're doing the films and how Jenna's been editing them is this. There's this feeling of witness,
Yes.
where you're bearing witness to people, and people are allowed to be vulnerable, and people are one of the pieces that we worked on is actually tell us about mix. We have this mix, and she went to USC.
Oh, I went to UCLA. So
Oh,
there's
shoot.
Okay, we're gonna go to break. We're gonna hash it out in the break. But when we come back, we'll talk to you about the mix. We'll be right back.